Hello everybody and welcome to episode 4. Can you believe I've been surviving you for like 4 episodes already? It's amazing.
I thought that was the one that's surviving.
No, I'm the one that's having to endure you.
You think so?
Oh, I know so.
Oh, all right.
Factually. This is the same man that's spent the last hour sitting outside the location. Go figures. But we're back again, people. We're here. How are you, Dad?
I'm good.
How you feeling this morning?
Great.
I had you out late last night.
Yes, you did. But it was very, very interesting.
So, Jam, by the way, guys, Jam has been skiving for the last 2 weeks. He would have you believe that he's been doing other work, but he hasn't. He's been in Derby planning his life. Of course, it's true. If I phone Anna right now, I'll be like, the last 2 weeks, he's been with me, Shean. I did tell him to go home, but he just didn't want to leave.
That's fancy talking your business, to the whole world.
That's what we're here to do. Share alike. We had a cool evening last night because we did a little bit of homework in preparation for today's sessions. Now, very quickly before we jump into that, I have to ask you, what did you think of the movie?
I think it was most innovative, actually.
Right?
I think that's a word for it. I mean, they really tried to address the issues in a very humorous way.
Right.
To be honest.
Now, let me pause you just right there, Dad, because I'm very aware that I have literally jumped into the conversation and I haven't even told anybody what we went to see, why we went to see it, or the multiple items that we both left at the cinema
of course.
Last night. So
you left.
Well, you left as well.
No.
Yes. Your hoodie is your business.
Yes, but
my AirPods are my. And why did I take it?
You took it, and I don't know where you took it.
Why did I take your hoodie?
Because you wanted to make me comfortable.
And just in case they stuck the air conditioning on and it turned into Siberia.
Indeed.
I didn't want you to be cold.
That is correct, but where you took it, I had no idea.
Jam, my dad nearly fell into the recliner. If I didn't take the coat, we wouldn't have watched the movie because you know what I mean? A&E. I would have been in A&E. So I took it.
What else did you leave? I mean, just for clarity, just for the purpose for those who are listening.
What question? Why did I leave my AirPods?
You did leave something.
Because we come out and then, I need to go to the toilet. I gotta go to the toilet. I was like, all right, Dad, cool. Do you know where it is? I think so. Go down one set of stairs, take a left. I'll be waiting outside. So whilst I was tarrying for you.
So what were you doing to leave your precious iPad?
No, my AirPods, they were in my pocket. And then as I sat on have you seen the little weird benches they've got out there? They've got no back and they've they're very cool. The way they're made. But yeah, the tracksuits that I was wearing, they hadn't no zip pockets.
Okay, it fell out.
Yeah. Because I had to sit down waiting for someone. So,
yes, good excuse.
It's hardly an excuse if it's the truth. The truth can't be an excuse.
It's a truthful excuse.
No, it's just the truth. Crazy. Anyway, we went to go see Inside Out. Now, the reason I wanted you, Dad, to see Inside Out is because, and this is maybe the more truthful part of the reasoning. Last week, I was accosted by so many people, and accosted is the wrong word because it makes it seem like it was a negative. I found myself in so many grace pockets talking to people that are going through it, Dad. Yeah. And after each conversation, I found, as I got back into my house, I sat down and I didn't want any noise. I couldn't hear anything. And Dad, sometimes I love having, I like background noise. Yeah. Sometimes I've got a couple of jazz playlists I play. I have some sermons that I love to listen to. I have a couple of audio books. I've got some worship playlists, but I just needed silence.
Right.
And I had a moment objectively to sit and look, and I thought to myself, if just on the basis of a transferable conversation where a person has felt like they have a safe space to express their vulnerability. If I, who am not permanently carrying that, and I also know after that conversation, I know what to do to pass it along, because I can't,
Indeed.
I don't physically have the solutions. I can be an expression of the solution through, obviously, you know, divine communication that allows me to be where I need to be to do those things. You like that, didn't you?
Yes, you're flowing.
Hey,
You look like you're anointed there. There's some kind of anointing going on there, you know.
But yeah, Dad, I found myself just needing silence, and because of how much we've flowed, and we've both been really taken back by even just people's responses to some of the off-the-cuff bantery stuff that we do, as well as the lovely messages and letters that kind of come in to your personal platforms, people that are emailing me, that I realized that this conversation, in terms of how I believe we're having it, is something that, you know, those that are listening to us need, and those that are maybe going to come into contact with us need. So we went to go see Inside Out.
Yeah.
And just to give everybody a quick synopsis of the story, it basically tracks the development of this young girl. And in the first movie, it was kind of her formative years to just before secondary school, or what the Americans know as high school. And she has her primary emotional functions: happiness, sadness, anger, fear. And then as she's now developing, and we went to go see the second one, as she's now developing, they're adding to her emotional palette. So the original fundamentals were joy, sadness, anger, fear. Now they add anxiety, embarrassment. He was hilarious. Boredom, and disgust and envy. And so as we're watching it, I was kind of like, I'm going to take my dad to see this, and this is either going to go really good or it's going to go really bad. And I remember telling you in the car on the way down that I watched how quiet you were.
Yeah. He tricked me. That's what he did. I mean, he told me that we were going out. I thought we were going to go and prepare for this session.
We were going to prepare.
You know, I mean, we went into the car park. I'm thinking, at this time of the night, what is in this car park? And then gradually, I like a lamb to the slaughter. I just followed him. And before I know it, there I was. Well, but it was interesting.
So tell me, Dad, what did you think about?
Now, I think they really try their best to bring to the consciousness of people, and especially younger people, all of the different emotions that they are going through and what they're experiencing. And in fact, is to let people feel comfortable with those emotions.
Massively, Dad. Yeah.
I think that was it. And while I understand what they're trying to do, I'm not sure if it is the best thing for one to feel comfortable with some of those emotions without having a cure or purpose for it. And when the whole thing becomes problematic, because, let's say, for example, envy wanted to have her way.
Yeah.
And it was selfish because she didn't care what it was doing
to
the other people who were friends of Joy. And so it shows that negative side of things, that you don't want to be cultivating that. So I think really you can't, as much as you can give people insight into what is going on, there has to be a solution.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Because of the way it was presented, and it was presented in, so the format is a kid's animation,
right?
Which I think immediately it feels less threatening. Two, I felt because of the humor within its presentation, and the reason why I like some of it, Dad, is because I think sometimes the basis of our conversations, sometimes when I go back, I love our conversations that you go back and listen to them. Sometimes, and I still find it really hard to do that. Honestly. So sometimes I'll go back and I'll maybe listen to 10 or 15 minutes, because I'm like, if the thread is right, then I can trust that it's kind of gone the whole way through. Does that make sense? But I'm also aware, just kind of looking at the analytics and reading the comments, the amount of people that enjoy what we do because in and amongst the depth of what we speak,
Yeah.
there's this real light-hearted joy
Yeah.
that's attached to something that's quite serious. And the reason why I liked it was because it almost felt like it made everybody okay to accept the good, the bad, and the nasty.
Yeah, I think that is a word. Psychologically,
Yeah.
I understand where they're going with it, but in reality, it can leave people in such a need, for what I would call for answers, because while we appreciate the various emotions that we go through, whether negative or positive, we understand it. But I think it is important for us to, while we have the negative one, we have a solution. It's like, for example, the rain. The rain comes and it's positive because it's watering the ground, making the flowers beautiful. But if you're walking in it for a long time without having an umbrella, for example, then you're going to get home very wet and cold.
Or even if you look at the expression of it, it can, even though the substance is nurturing the ground
Indeed.
and creating life, the visual aesthetic, me and Jan were driving down, and I remember looking at it and we were just both like, oh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So do you think that there maybe is a place where sometimes the visual of what's happening can be off-putting, yet the substance in it?
Yeah, the substance is great, but I think that it lacks balance. And I mean, that may come in series number 50. But for these two, I think, given the trauma that, for example, the main character, Joy, went through with all of the other emotions, is where would she go to address those emotions? Because they don't adjust themselves. You see, they need to come face to face with their DNA, their condition, and therefore to find out, to have solutions for it. And I think that would bring balance.
Can I ask you something? Sure. And I'm quoting here from a very solution-filled, successful piece of literature. Okay? Slightly paraphrasing. In order for a person to change, one must first accept the primary condition they find themselves in order to create the equal footing upon which to stand, to understand how to walk. Based on that statement, I would suggest that the film was never supposed to provide answers. It was merely meant to provide space for people to choose whether or not they're going to accept what they know to be true or to not accept that and live in a space where many do. They just carry on.
Right.
Now, the reason I say that is because do you agree with that quote that I just said first?
In part.
Okay. That's yours. So for me,
but you did paraphrase it.
I paraphrase it, but I paraphrase it on the basis of, to say the two sentences wouldn't have expanded the actual basis of what you were saying, because I think when you are making something better, you don't do it in the absence of yourself. So I would never sit and look at a movie and expect something that is built in a soul dimension to then ascend to a spiritual place, because it's almost like expecting a plane to fly that has been given a car engine and bicycle wheels. Like, Dad, really? Are we really going to sit here
It's-
and critique something that does not have the capacity to be what it's supposed to be? So for me, it's then go, okay, then if I've provided the space for diagnosis, then surely the solution givers are then meant to come in and not critique the fact that I provided the space for diagnosis, but like, well done, because then you now provide the funnel to give solution.
Yes, I understand where you're going with that one. Of course, having observed what has been done and within the limited space and in fact even capacity, because it's clearly targeted to a certain group of people, while at the same time anyone could see the humorous side of it.
It was layered enough, Dad, that whilst it's a kid's production, the adults and the guardians that are going to take him, it has layers of depth.
Indeed.
That anybody can kind of lean.
Absolutely. And that is why, for me, it triggers that that whole concept of balance, because I'm fully aware that a person, whether it's the teenagers or the young child, can look at that, and because you've got all kind of extreme in terms of emotion. You know, you've got people who won't do anything because everything embarrasses them, or there's those who won't assent to anything because they're too bored. And you got those who are too envious, and therefore they'll do anything. You don't care who they hurt or who they don't hurt in the process. As envy, I think it was, demonstrated that even though Joy's friends would have been hurt by her choosing the other side.
Oh, okay. So wait there. So joy is the primary emotion that kind of runs the emotional palette, but the actual girl, Riley.
Indeed. Right. So envy didn't care. You know what I mean? And that is not what you want. What one is portraying to have balance is the fact that, yes, while you have that emotion, but it has to be controlled, and it has to know that, yes, you can't allow this kind of emotion to rule so strongly that you don't care how it impacts others. And that is what I think has happened to a lot of people, is that they have experienced these emotions unchecked. And so even into adulthood, it's still impacting them. You know, and that's why you find among, and I'm sure you would realize it among men and women, the struggles because they are fighting with these emotions.
I agree completely with what you said. I wanted to bring something to your attention because I'm hoping that we're going to be able to weave our way through this this mind maze, because I think there's some wonderful things to pull out. And also, just on the basis of how we are, I know this could turn into a 6-hour podcast very easily. Now, the first thing that I wanted to say to you was with regards to the emotions, I think what you said was really key, that at any given time when they were given too much reign, so in terms of when the power over the mind and the action became so singular, like you said, it always knocked the little girl out of balance.
Indeed.
Because she was leaning into something way too much and then had no stability. Also, at the end, do you remember when they were all trying to so, you know, every time that she had like a core memory and then they go plant it in her mind's consciousness, or the conscious stream, and then it would grow to then develop her belief system.
Indeed.
That just kind of balance, leaning into the point that you said, when they all got around it together, and they even dragged in crazy anxiety to be like, John, there's this part at the end of the movie where, Dad, it was so powerful visually, right?
Yeah.
Anxiety is freaking out.
Yeah.
And obviously, what's happening with the little girl, she's basically in a sin bin. So she's playing a hockey match. She's done something really bad to another, like a friend, basically. She's sitting there and she's going through this emotional mental process of what she's done, and anxiety's freaking out. And obviously we can see what's going on in her head, but the expression, she's kind of, remember that she was looking down and she was fidgeting and she was all over the place. And Jam, she's at the control board, anxiety, and she's frozen. But she's frozen trying to figure everything out. So it's mad kinetic energy and it's swirling around her. And this is the thing that really got me. The only one that could break through the barrier was Joy.
Indeed.
And the one thing that Joy was encouraging anxiety to do is just let go.
Let go.
Let go.
Let go. That is right. That's correct.
Because in anxiety's mind, it was doing everything it could to fix a problem that it created.
Yeah.
So, Dad, the first thing I wanted to ask, just based on that 3-point steer I was on, one, how does one balance their emotional output?
Yeah. Now, that is a very good question.
It's a hard question.
Well,
because I heard that when I was there, I was like, "Oh, someone gave me that. How do you balance your emotional output?"
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. I think one of the things that you have to really rely on is facts, are truth.
Say that one more time.
So the thing you got to absolutely rely on is facts or truth. Rather, and once you've got that, is the only thing that is going to sincerely brings you into balance. What is the truth of the situation? What are the facts that is influencing what's going on? And just to as a pointer, when anxiety was, as you said, frozen, what was in her mind was to get the third light to shine.
Yeah.
And she would have felt complete. You know what I mean? And that is one of the things that you want us to recognize, that if you're going to really bring balance, you have to know the truth about any situation that you're facing.
I was listening to this philosopher a couple of weeks ago, and I was really enjoying the lecture he was giving. And he said, some people can't be happy. And I said, why can't they be happy? And he said, because they're always anticipating what hasn't happened yet.
That is exactly the basis of anxiety.
Which, when you just mentioned the third light, because if you remember, the 3 lights equaled the 3 goals she needed to score in order to be better than the best player that she was in the match with. And so the need to reach that target put her into a certain place where she was worried about the anticipation of something that hadn't happened. Now, the thing that's got me most is that you really didn't pick up the thread that you're the person that said that.
Oh, no. No.
So then I was kind of hoping that as I kind of ushered you to the tip of the hill, you then go, oh, he's teed me up. Woo! But we're sitting and you're looking at me and I'm like, why are you looking at me when I've just given you the... You ever seen the F1 when they go, green? And everybody's got it. My dad's like, oh.
Yeah, you see, well, back to us. Yeah, so...
no, we never left us. I was just waiting for you to step back into you.
Yes. So, okay. So let's do that. You see, now, again, some things, depending on what you're dealing with and what issues you're dealing with, and again, within the work I do, there are certain things that is clearly stated mustn't be done. However, by virtue of my position, I can look at this situation and then judge it by virtue of what take place and how it take place, and may make an informed decision based on what I see, I discover. But it is not because of or in spite of. And that is where the two differences is that you have statement laid down, which you act and move because of. But then you may find yourself in a situation that you got to act and move in spite of. You see what I mean?
It's powerful.
Yes, and that is where oftentimes although you put down the narrative and put on what is the norm, but you're not always dealing with the norm. And that is where you have to be able to deal with both the norm and the abnormal.
So what do you start with?
So you start with the norm.
Okay, cool.
And then if situation presents itself, then you have the solution equally by advising, instructing, guiding in spite of the norm.
Okay. Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
As we were taking in that production last night, three things really jumped out to me. Firstly, the non-threatening introduction of anxiety. I looked at it and I'm like, what a really smart way to enter.
Yes.
Because it was non-threatening whilst coming in to take complete control.
True.
Of everything. The next thing that really stuck out to me was the incohesiveness between the emotions created stress within HQ. Because everybody's trying to get their point across to sustain some kind of control that they think is going to help who they're all working towards. And then it was the part of watching the little girl take thought processes that had actually started from a good place.
Indeed.
That became so regenerative, Dad. Because do you remember when they were trying to get to the back of the mind, and then they headed into that little information room, and anxiety had hacked the information room, and she was telling them, like, we need scenarios that look like this, and then they're flashing them to her whilst the little girl was asleep, Dad.
Yes.
And then they were waking her up, and all of a sudden, so I'm like, so that's how sometimes depression can start in the subconscious, and it eases itself because without realizing you've been having these messages. So, Dad, how would you then deal with that 3-prong attack, and out of stress, anxiety, depression? What would you say it starts from, it ends with, and then obviously how do you start to bring that balance?
I think depression is established. Sorry, not depression. Stress.
Right.
It starts and it begins to grow sprouts. You know what I mean? Because you find that anxiety doesn't come around unless a person is going through certain stressful situation where they begin to give rise to the thought process.
Oh, I love that, Dad.
That this is going to happen, even though it hasn't happened yet.
Can you remember everything you just said in the last 5 seconds? Please. No,
So
the reason I
that
say,
is it.
me too, Dad. I looked over and I went, well done, Jack.
Indeed.
Dad, what you just said there was brilliant.
You know, give it sprout. It gives root or give.
It's like a weed.
Yes, that's what it does. And to issues or things that you feel is going to happen and you have no control over it, because you start first by stressing about your environment.
But you said something about thought. You said
it gives rise to the thought, because anxiety is in essence thought. That is the old thought process. It's a thought process.
Right.
So that is what it starts from, and it gives rise to that anxious and anxiety in essence. Now, anxiety therefore becomes the controlling factor over those other emotions. For example, it has control over sadness.
Yeah.
It had control over envy.
Yeah.
It had control over fear.
Yeah.
It can bring you into boredom.
Yeah.
And the list goes on. From that one thing. So those are the fruits of it, and that is why to address it, it goes back to what I call the PCS, and that is the problem, cause, solution.
Where were you when you came up with that this morning? Because I know you sat back in your chair and you patted yourself on the back. Went, PCS, that's going to catch on. Go on. I like it. So go on one more time. So then that process gives rise to the PCS witches.
I think you should pay for these things.
No, I'm not paying for nothing.
You should pay for, I mean, I've said it 2 times already, and he still wants to hear it again.
Jamal, we're filming this, right? So everybody can see I'm sitting here with him as he's coming up with it. I don't know where he thinks I'm going to run off with this thing to and go resell it.
Indeed.
As you're saying. So what does PCS stand for again, Dan?
Problem, cause, solution.
Okay.
So that is that's the antidote for anxiety. Because when you are stressing, it's because you feel you're having a problem. And oftentimes people do not look at the cause. And therefore, if you don't come up with the cause, you're not going to have a solution. So anxiety will work its way in when you fail to find the cause.
Ooh.
And your solution is hanging out there somewhere while anxiety is making a havoc of people's mind and lives and relationship and all of that. And that is why so many people are on all kind of medication for something that in truth doesn't exist.
In a very concise way, would you agree that would you agree that anxiety, how am I trying to say this, Dad? Would you agree that when anxiety comes, it's the basis of exchanging an absolute for a variable? The reason I say that is because anxiety is going to lay out every possible scenario that could work against you.
Yeah.
Which is the variable nature of our human emotion. So depending on what's happening in one moment to the next, we lean into it. But the absolute of the truth that we need to hold on to is the very thing that we fail to grasp, because the prognosis of all of the potential problems have this way of clouding out the one absolute. Indeed. And because it feels so authentic,
indeed,
and the truth feels so far away in those moments, it's almost like you'll trade what you don't know for what you do.
Yeah.
Because and let me give the basis of the movie. A lot of her anxiety came from the fact of she'd made a plan with her friends that they're all going to go to the same high school together. And the minute that she found out they'd been assigned somewhere else, the flight path that she had set for them for the next 4 years was eradicated. And her main goal was, I need to have friends. And so it caused her to do things that at no point had her friends come to her, even with the crazy way she was acting, and said, we don't want to be your friend. They were just looking at her like, this isn't the person we know.
Absolutely. And one of the things that must be noted there was that anxiety was the cause of the problem. You see, because anxiety, because she would have been happy to go with her friends, but anxiety feel like, you know what, I want something more than just you going to your friend. I want you to have a bigger friend and a better friend, which will perhaps have some offspin for anxiety, as it were. But the fact is that if you notice there are times when you're gonna go, there are times when she, So as they put thoughts into their mind, and this is what happens with anxiety, is that whenever time you look at your stressful situation, it begins to flood your mind with thoughts, in most cases to the negative.
Yeah.
You see, and if you don't have somebody to help bring that balance to you and say, look, why are you worrying about what has not yet happened?
Yeah.
You see, and this is where many people sort of totally don't see solution to the problem, because they're refusing to deal with the cause.
So, in a visual way, stress then is the seed. The situation waters the seed of stress, which then produces the sprouting of anxiety.
Yeah.
And then, would you say it's fair to say that the the reaping of that sprouting of anxiety is then the harvest of depression?
No, see, depression is based on your past.
Right.
You know, it's sitting there. It is like in the cupboard. It's somewhere there in the safe. You see, and therefore, it impacts you leading up to your now.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So when you find yourself in the now, stress is to do with the now,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and therefore that's why it's easy for anxiety to attach itself to it, because today is today, tomorrow is another day, and therefore if you cannot find what you think is the solution today, then you begin to open your mind to the negative thoughts of tomorrow and what you think may happen next week, the other week, the other week, the other month. So when you really get hold of the truth concerning your situation, let me give an example. For example, you're going through struggle with your bills.
Right.
When you begin to check it out, you realize that your bills are more than what you have as your income. Now, what is the cause of that? See, there's a cause there. Did you spend more?
Yeah, it's a lack of financial management.
Well, that is it. So that lack of financial management, you see. Now, if you accept that truth,
yeah,
and adjust,
yeah, your situation, it will change your
you're
environment.
you're gonna bring that thing into control in the present and eliminate stress. See, but when you don't, for the reason of either, as I said, for different reasons, envy, keeping up with the Joneses, whatever, see, then it lends its way into now you're on a path that you have little or no control over. While the simple solution is to back up. You get what I mean? Decide, okay, you know what? I may not make that 10 journey that I used to make. I'm going to cut it down to 5. I may not buy all the expensive things I used to buy this month. I'm going to cut it down to 2. And so you'll begin to fix it in the now, rather than continuing and wishing and hoping that it's going to fix itself in the future, which clearly is not the way one is going to deal with it.
So then, Dad, would you say that the solution of that action is a physical manifestation first, or is it a mental decision?
Which one?
Well, you said that in order, so there's a person who's stressing out about their bills, right?
Yes, let's see as an example.
And then what you then said was that their problem isn't what they're about to lose, because their mind is going to say, well, if I can't have money for my bills, then I can't do this, and I can't do that, and I can't do the third. So it's an outward projection of everything they're not going to be able to do.
Yeah.
But the reality is that the solution lays within an intrinsic understanding or acceptance, which is my management of my finances need to be better.
Which is the cause.
Okay. So then now, what do then we need to do?
Is to,
you first have to,
acknowledge the problem.
It's cool. Step 1, acknowledge the problem.
Yeah. 2, how did I come to this problem?
Now that's where I think most people, because it requires a certain level of accountability within yourself.
Within yourself, that's it. And that's what people don't want, because they value other things even more important above their own health and wealth.
And then after you've accepted, you then move into
but once you accept the cause, then you are fit now, ready for the solution. And the solution is going to mean sacrificing what you did in the first instance to create the problem.
What do you think is the problem with most people's sacrificial intentions, Dad? Do you think that we are by and large built in a way where if we aren't the
center of attention also, yeah,
do we really lay ourselves down in that place to
yeah, I think just to answer the question, you might have heard about the deadly African bees, our Brazilian bees. There's a bunch of bees flying around South America, and what they did, the powers that be took the aggressive African bees, crossbreeded with the common bees to get more yield. But now that thing become a runaway chain, as it were, a problem. You see what I mean? So in most people's cases, you see, people have been fed certain narrative by those who, let's put it, greedy, and those who want to be the 5% of the greatest and best and richest people in the world. So from a young age, these things are fed into children. You see, now you take, for example, a television. One time you could say at 7 o'clock to your child, go to bed. Television is downstairs, so you're upstairs, you're not gonna. Now, all of that is on their phone. And their homework is on their phone. So how are you gonna be able to monitor what it is unless you are that conscious and techie? But that child is being fed with all the stuff that the pop stars are doing and the rich person is doing, and it creates that craving to be like everybody else without having the means or even the ability to be like that.
You know what my problem is with the tech companies, Dad? And I find myself often in this juxtaposition of loving and condemning something.
Absolutely.
I'm aware that if you have the ability to build an algorithm that can predict and know what my proclivities are, what I may like, what I may want to see, you also have the power to create the balance I may not have or be able to self-implement.
Indeed.
Jan, are you telling me that if, for as powerful as Facebook is, for as powerful as TikTok is, they could sit there and go, at 10:30, because we have way more personal information than we should have about any user, we know which devices that we can turn off. Through the algorithm, we know exactly who, where, and what we can shut down. You can shut me down if I'm one of 1 billion users on your platform for a whole series of things that your platform tells me goes against the guidelines of your platform. Now, there isn't a personal TikTok, Facebook officer standing next to me going, oh, you're a bit close to the line there, buddy. You're going to need to. But yet we find ourselves in this place where everything in our environment is leading us to excess.
Yes.
And to greed.
Indeed.
And to more. When we need less.
Indeed.
And so what I wanted to do, Dad, was just very quickly ask if I surmise this in the right way. Based off of what you were saying, then stress is to our present, as anxiety is to our future, and depression is to our past.
Yes.
So it almost feels in a certain way that it's almost like depression is this corpse. You're basically dragging on a 20-foot rope.
Yeah.
And then every time you go into a new room, you're looking around and everybody's going, what's that smell?
Absolutely. And it is, in essence, it's happening in most people's home. But they just cannot You know, when you sort of come in and you have this horrible smell, but you cannot pinpoint
Musty.
where it is. Where exactly? Is it in the cupboard? Is it in the kitchen? Is it, and that is what people are dealing with. And until somebody point that out to say, you know what, you've got some things in your past that is really impacting your environment.
Dad, how do people get brave enough to go back there?
That's a very good question. Very good question indeed. How do they see? Because it does take a certain level of courage to.
Do you remember in the film yesterday when they got all stuck in the secret vaults? And you remember Jam, basically, when anxiety, she basically does a coup in HQ, right? So that's her mind. She basically banishes, she calls the mind police to banish the other emotions to the secret vaults. And imagine a bank, and a bank's got a vault. Basically, in there is a preschool TV show she loved. In there was like this computer game character that she secretly fancied. And then this hooded figure.
Dark, yes, dark. That is it.
And the hooded figure in the background was the big dark secret. Yeah. And when they all got out, do you know the only person that refused? And they blew off the door, right? He picked up the blown off door to lock himself back in the secret vault.
Yes.
And that I almost felt like
that's depression. That's what depression unless you get rid of it, unless you get it out. It's happy to stay in your background, creating havoc.
In the dark, Dad.
Absolutely.
That was the thing that got me. It was the
To
Dad, how then anybody listening to this that is saying to themselves, no, I'm done. I'm not, this is not for me. I'm not staying here. I'm going to go beat this.
Yeah.
What's ground zero there?
Yeah, it's not, you see, a lot of people make the mistake in thinking it's a mental power thing. You see, you can't beat it mental power in the first place. Otherwise, you wouldn't have it. The problem.
Because we already love our minds and the control that we think we wield up there, Dad.
Precisely. And so to do that, you have to literally, activate another side of your being.
You have to go back.
Which is called faith. That is the side that, in general, the world don't teach you as faith. They teach you as motivation. You know what I mean? So people will go out and talk about motivation, etc. But in fact, what is really the root is faith. Everybody's got some degree of faith. Yes, I mean, and it's understanding that concept that enables you to know that the context of the secret, because it was one of the things that caught my attention in that film. What was the dark secret? So, that was the thing that my mind was waiting to hear and to see what was the dark secret. And this is where only she knows what is that.
It's crazy you say this. I had Dad, sometimes obviously you might, I know you'll notice this. Dad, when I'm looking at things, especially in the cinema, I'm enjoying it, but I'm asking myself, what would I do? How would I have written this? What would I do to change it? Dad, when the big dark secret locked itself back in the vault, I said, brother, this guy's going to come out in the third one, The big dark secret locks himself back in it, and then she also had something called nostalgia. And anytime something remotely feeling familiar happened, nostalgia came out as a little old woman. I remember when it was hilarious, Jam.
Get back.
But I felt like, I was just like, okay, this big dark secret, they're going to use it because we all have things in our lives that either we want to forget, we don't want anybody else to know, but yet a lot of what we become and who we are defined
by that. Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of the times these are the gatekeepers across the bridge of depression to go and almost imagine you're a prisoner, Jam, and I know that I have to retrieve you from Depression Island. But I cannot retrieve you unless I fight that thing that's standing at the...
And you have to be willing to give you leverage, to give the authority to go fight that thing.
Oh,
Yes, I mean,
expand that.
Yes, because see, if you notice where the big dark secret was, locked away in a vault. Yes, I mean, no keys, no authority. The only person principal that had the key would be the girl. And and the thing is that she was not willing.
No.
Yes, I mean, that's only reason we are left not knowing what is the dark secret.
Yeah, you're right.
And that is, in ministering to people and dealing with depression and stuff, is one of the greatest challenges we face, is the willingness of people to go back to deal with that dark secret.
One of the things that I've always thoroughly enjoyed when... You got to remember, Jan, my dad's been in ministry for 30 years. It's why I don't really get freaked out by stuff. I feel like I've seen 98% of every scenario, normal, abnormal, crazy, super crazy, that you could ever imagine. Now, one of the most brilliant things I've ever seen about my dad is his ability to take a person by the proverbial emotional hand, walk them through the corridor of time. And you got to remember, like, I've been watching my dad. Well, I used to hide behind the door of his office, or...
You see what I have to deal with? I mean, imagine hiding behind doors, listening to people's business.
Bruh. And I have to see these people on Sunday, I'll be like, I know what's going on in your house, bro. But the thing that used to take me back, because, as you know, I have a supervisual mind. So I can't see the person. I can hear the person. I can hear the conversation. Jamal, I would watch grown men become boys and children. Women go back to places in their house, a conversation with their grandmother or their mother. And to trust a person to a place where you will have them walk you through where you don't have the courage to walk yourself. Okay, we're older, right? When your mum started letting you stay up till midnight and them times there was a couple parks that you wouldn't go through at night. Do you ever remember Cherry? Do you know Cherry Hinton at all? So if I said to you the snaky path by the Cherry... Brother, you ever been down the snaky path past 1 o'clock in the morning? Nah, because you ain't trying to see Freddie and Freaky Jason and all. You know what's going on? You know what crazy person's hiding the bulrushes down there, bro? So, like, even you and I, and we're not soft guys. You understand what I'm saying? So, come on. So if you and I, Jack, and our parents weren't letting us stay out that time until we were like legally adults. If we're going, no, I'll go the long way round, and the long way round really was the long way round. You go through the snaky path, that is 4 to 5 minutes tops.
Yeah.
You go round, it's 20 minutes, you know. And a person, the best way I can describe it is that my dad would be allowed to walk these people through the worst parts of the snaky path, bro. And I always wondered, Dad, what was the trigger for you to know that they were willing to go?
Yeah, I think number one, in most cases, they were not willing to go. You see, that was the interesting thing about it.
Did you find that you had to convince them?
Yes, because of discernment. You see, now discernment is the ability to see
what's not really.
You see, what's not visual. You see what I mean? And you would sit there with people, and they would clump up, just like how you see that dark shadow locked himself back into that vault, because that is what most people, in the terms of their personality and the challenges of their past, they just want to guard it with their life, because they think that it's what show who they are. You know what I mean? And that is the major problem that many people have. They think what happened to them in their past, it characterizes who they are, when in fact it doesn't. You see? So when you go back to a certain place, they absolutely slam the door shut. You're not going any further than here. And that's where now discernment comes in. It's a spiritual term, which of course means to see. Then I would then see what has happened and take wisdom to say to them. So it's like, imagine if you hold my hand. Let's say you hold my hand. Okay, no, not like that. That's me. I mean, you're slapping my hand. I said, hold it. Hold it. That's it. Okay, good. Now, if I want to hold your hand and you're stronger than me,
Yeah.
You see, the easiest way to get your hand off mine is to start with your little finger.
Yeah.
Then work my way to the next one.
True.
And the next one until, of course,
there's no grip.
That is it. And in most people, that's how it has to be. So because they become fearful, they become concerned that you're going to know things about them
that they're not ready.
That they're not ready for you to know. So upon you reassuring them that number one, it's not you inquiring from them, it's God showing you. And therefore, if He shows me this situation, then they can trust that it's going to remain because we're going to eliminate it.
Which means that the reason you said the dimension of faith within your being is the activator, because a person is first going to have to believe in trust that you saw something that they obviously didn't want to show. Indeed. Which is very scary for a person that's already walking towards the proverbial valley of the shadow of death.
Yes. And that's why even within the film, even when everybody has rushed out of the vault, shut himself back in. And is why Return to Innocence is such a book. And I got to say to everyone, when we release that book, they need to get it. Because it is the only way in which you understand how you can go back to your past and deal with the issues, because aspect of your past that keeps most people locked down is not what characterizes who you are.
Yeah. I also think one of the key things about that particular book is it is one of the few spiritually sound pieces of literature that give you the factual basis of your physiology, a clear understanding of your mental and your soul realm and your emotional palette, and then gives you very clear indications of how you understand firstly, the core element of your own creative being, which is your spirit.
Yeah.
How you then understand what God's purpose is for you. And then you, because of the way the book's written, you have to build the bridge between who you actually are and crossing over into where you need to be in order for that healing process to handle. And what I love about it also is everything in it is practical. It does not take the onus away from you being the primary person doing what you need to do. You have to face that. You have to make the decision. I can walk with you. I can guide you, but I can't send you to where you're not willing to go.
And in most people's case, once you give them the key, to unlock that vault, and they know that, that big thing isn't going to come out and roll them over. Because that's not what their life is. Their life is not that dark secret locked away in that vault. No. In fact, there's a reason that thing is being fed, not by them per se, but by other people who have built it in their life.
Say that one more time.
That thing is not being fed by them, but by other people who have built it into their life. It's like, for example, a young child. When he was talking earlier about that snake path, and when he said, he tried to allude to the fact that, you have to be hard to go down there. And I'm thinking, I didn't create any hard boy. Son, I created a nice, gentle, soft son. You know what I'm saying? So where did he get that from? You see, that's what life is. The environment. You see, to survive in school, to survive with his friend, you are impacted by your environment. And that is what creates. He likes it,
Why'd you stop?
I got him,
bro. This.
I got him out of the woods. You know what I'm saying? You see, so that.
No, you done lost it, man. You're there flowing. I was just like, damn, we're in, damn.
You see, so that environment is what one has to now backtrack on. Who was it? Mommy, daddy, auntie, uncle, nephew, niece, friends, schools, all of these things. They contributed to that dark secret. And it's until you get beyond that to know that was never you. Oof. You see what I mean? Yeah. So for example, when he was young and, not so hard, you know what I mean? I used to hold him, and that's that's him. That was then. But the transition began to take place. Environment comes in. And then, these are where these things happen. So is understanding how to go back to the real person and to let them understand that, look, you're victims of your past environment.
Firstly, got there in the end. I want to thank everybody that's taken the time to hang out with us. Dad, as you are aware, we have to finish this next week. Absolutely. This is only part one. Mm-hmm. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, share to the YouTube platform, Shean Williams Music. Also to my father's TikTok, Instagram at Bishop Williams. What?
Bishop Linwell Williams.
I'm only joking. Please subscribe to all of his platforms, Bishop Linwell Williams, Instagram, TikTok, and that's where we have you right now. Yeah. Also, the podcast is live on Spotify.
That's right.
So please look at Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, and also coming up here should be the Patreon and the other spaces and places to donate and also subscribe and let other people know what's going on. Thank you so much for your time and your efforts, Dad. Thank you massively.
Stay blessed.
Jan, good to see you. Mm-hmm. Well done for not Skyping this week. Thank you for letting him out, Anna. We appreciate you. Guys, we love you all. We'll see you next week.
Okay.